This just came up in my recommended. I have not watched it yet. I haven't seen it. I didn't even see... I don't know when this happened. This might have been, like, a long time ago. It might have been recently. But it is a debate that Vaush did, and it went out today, defeating a racist in the marketplace of ideas debate. And it is 2 hours long. So this will be interesting. We're, of course, going to watch it at a little bit of a faster speed, 1.5 speed to be exact. Faster speed than, you know, it happened at in real time. And we're going to be analyzing it. We're obviously not just sitting here and just watching it. We're actually going to be pausing it and analyzing it. So if you guys get mad when a streamer pauses a debate or pauses a video and, like, talks about it for extended or prolonged periods of time, then you aren't going to like this. So yeah, hopefully you enjoy. We're gonna be analyzing this shit. I love pauses. I love pausing. Jeremy Landry, thank you for the $5 super chat. That's so kind of you. He says, I'm super depressed, and the fact you remain consistent is nice. Well, Jeremy Landry, I don't know how those two things are connected, but I sure do hope that you stop being depressed soon. I was once depressed as well, and look, you see this? You see this? You see this? I was a little dumb baby, 18-year-old boy, and now I am 23, and I am the biggest streamer of all time, all right? Things will get better, my friend. Trust me. All right, with that said, let's watch the debate. I got so fucking freaked out by Vaush's intro playing at 1.5 speed. I don't know why, but it, like... It jolted me, you know? Paused already? Yeah.
Very good to speak to you again. So, like I was just telling them, this is like an unmoderated debate, so...
Whoa, okay, this is a little bit too fast. I'm gonna turn it down to 1.25. That was a little bit too much. All right. We got a little bit too overzealous here.
So, you're just blessing us with your presence to speak to Pepe.
Yeah,
So
we're just chilling.
Pepe.
So like I was telling you guys, Vaush is streaming right now, so you'll find his stream pinned in the audience chat if you'd like to see him while he's speaking. He's very beautiful, so I suggest you do that. Pepe is one of the most prominent right wingers on the server, alt-right, libertarian quote unquote types on the server. So you know, if you guys don't know who Pepe is, you're
alt-right / libertarian. I'm assuming what he actually is alt-right, but he calls himself a libertarian, is what I'm assuming that means. They sure love doing that.
You're just not spending enough time on the server.
I thought Pepe was the frog.
He's not a frog, unfortunately.
Oh, I thought it was a frog.
Yeah, I had my hopes up, and he got on cam, and he's actually like an Italian dude or something.
Fuck.
So,
That's
I'm actually French. So I'm technically...
It's not really an improvement.
Okay, well, I'll leave you to it. And I don't know if you guys had a topic or whatever, but yeah.
Wait, yeah.
This guy's French. He's already lost the debate. French people only know how to run. They only know how to lose. And they only know how to retreat. It's really just that simple. Also, I'm going to guess this guy is not actually French, just judging by his voice. You know, maybe I'm being racist right now, but he does not sound French.
And then he is a frog. Wait.
Exactly.
Oh, there we go. Okay. How you
True.
doing? What's up?
Real.
Good. How are you? So I was listening to you just a little bit before the stream. So I a couple of things. So you have a degree in sociology, right?
Yeah.
All right, we have something in common there. Probably got mine before you, a little bit older, but and you're pro-gun.
Dude, I can't tell if it's a good thing or a bad thing that I didn't go to college before starting streaming. Granted, like Vaush, for example, has like a degree in sociology, very useful, and like public speaking experience and whatnot. But then again, college is a waste of money, which I never did waste that money. So it's hard to say. It's hard to say which would have been a better path. If I'd gone to college, then started doing YouTube and streaming, or if I just, you know, did what I did.
Yeah.
Okay, right on. Sweet. So,
well, if you're
right,
French, do you
so-
own any guns, or do you sort of abstractly pro-gun? I don't know what the gun laws are in French. Or,
no, I'm not. I'm sorry. No, my family's French. I'm an American. I was born here.
Well, that's the whole point of America, right? You shed your old ancestry because it's a big melting pot. So to me, you are but an American.
I am.
That triggered the fuck out of that guy. 100%. Dude, these people will just be generic American white guy, number 800,056. And they need to feel unique. And they need to feel like they have some... Like, these people will at once say that black people care too much about race and talk too much about their race and culture and stuff like that. But then right on the other, like, they'll turn around and then need to find, like, oh, I'm 20% French. I'm French. And it's like, French culture. Oh, yeah, I'm French. Oh, yeah. And it's like, okay, so clearly everybody wants to feel like they have some sort of cultural identity to attach to. And it's not just the minorities are getting too... Yeah, they're super obsessed with bloodlines, too. Like, for starters, let's not even get into conservatives and their obsession with maintaining racial and ethnic purity. But I'm mostly just referencing, like, the very broad and obvious, like, double standard, you know? Because I see conservative types, ranging from, like, just your average chuds to neo-Nazis, saying, oh, the black community, always talking about, their culture and all of that. They obsess too much with race and all that. But they do the same fucking thing. And they always have. It's projection. It truly, truly is.
Yep. So, all right. So I remember last time we had talked a little bit about more like freedom of association. That was kind of where when it comes to a lot of the whole like diversity is our strength and all of that is where I kind of, and that could be true to some extent, right? But I remember giving like the hypothetical regarding if there was, I use Belarus, I'll just use a hypothetical. But let's say it's all racially, ethnically, religiously, all pure, quote unquote pure, or all the same. And I mentioned, well, if they want to remain homogenous, and just by not allowing immigration,
fuck them.
So there'd be no expelling or genociding or any of that stuff. I couldn't really see where it would be morally wrong unless there was like a humanitarian crisis where they...
Well, because your right to swing your fist ends at my face. Your right to... You don't get to decide, yes, it is our right to decide that you guys don't have the right to exist here, or that we have the right to kick you out. That's a very simple case of, you're free to do what you want, except if what you want to do is take away other people's freedom. I feel like this is a very libertarian, by the way.
We're maybe refusing to take in people who obviously would suffer if they didn't come in. But if I recall correctly, you kind of had a problem with that, unless you felt like you would have to have more valid reason besides just being from a different country or of a different race.
Yeah, well, one of the initial problems is that there's really no such thing as an ethnostate that doesn't discriminate or genocide or persecute. There is no such thing as a culturally homogenous country. Every country on Earth and every...
That little jingle is sung by Sweet Myths, who also did the theme song, my theme song, X in My Name. Believe it or not, I did not pay them to do it or ask them to. It was a surprise. Wait, that's completely wrong. Hold on. Song. There we go. You see that right there? That link right there goes to Sweet Myth's YouTube channel. And I highly recommend you check them out. They got a lot of really good music, both about me, about Vaush, and other cool music that you should check out as well that is not streamer related. In fact, most of their music is not streamer related. In fact, I think they've done quite a few live appearances in Southern California, so if any of you live in Southern California, like in the LA area potentially, I think you might be able to catch a Sweet Myths show if you follow them on Instagram and stuff. I know this is a bit of a, little bit of a sidetrack, a little bit of a derailment, but I think Vaush would agree with the sentiment. Go follow Sweet Myths. There's no reason not to. There is literally no reason not. Give me 12 good reasons why you shouldn't. That's right. You've got none. Go do it.
Every country that has ever existed has included cultural and social schisms. And there are always ethnic schisms as well, because ethnicity is sort of an arbitrary boundary that you can subdivide as many times as you want. A culture that is obsessed with maintaining purity will find impurities within itself. So there's really no reason at promoting that at all, especially when there's no reason for the so-called purity. There is no such thing as purity on a social level. It's a completely made-up concept. There are millions of individuals with their own ideas. There will always be disagreements and crime and what have you. The pursuit of purity for its own sake usually means a fixation on adjacent characteristics that do very little to predict well-being within a country. There are
So I'm sorry to I'm really sorry to cut Vaush off here, but Did you notice the guy said purity? Maintain the purity of a nation. You ever notice that with these Nazi types, their language seems to get like so... It's almost like the black speech of Mordor, where it's like a twisting and morphing of like normal language to the point where like without them even realizing it, they start appropriating these really weird like these weird like dog whistles and weird catchphrases and whatnot that just you know what they kind of mean. And it just helps to alienate you from broader society, which is, you know, very obvious cult behavior.
Countries all around the world that are very ethnically diverse, that have relatively low rates of criminality.
Wait, why does Vaush have wigglers in his chat? Do we have wigglers? Are they in my chat too? I'm scanning. Do we have them? I don't see any. Okay, I think they've just... The wigglers have infected Vaush's chat, but not mine. Okay. We have to... Trust me, guys. I'm going to commission a bunch of Xander Hall emotes. It's going to be fantastic.
High rates of economic productivity. And there are countries that are relatively ethnically homogenous that do not and do not. It has far more to do with material conditions than any idea of like national purity. So the discrimination necessarily entails, I think, persecution. But even besides that, I just think people should have the right to travel where they want. I don't think you should be able to erect boundaries to keep people from visiting our lovely planet just because some people have a weird, arbitrary idea that somehow it's better to maintain racial purity within a culture.
That is a very long-winded way of saying exactly what I said. Though Vaush has like a very eloquent way of speaking, I just kind of like dump my words out like Vaush speaking is like somebody delicately, you know, gently and delicately and deliberately pouring a glass of water like out into the sink to make sure that like, you know, that water doesn't go splashing everywhere and it doesn't make a mess and everything. When I speak, it's like just dumping it into the sink, water goes flying, it hits a spoon and that just sends it up into the air, water gets on the ceiling. That's me talking. That's I feel like that's a very good comparison. Still gets the same job done in the end, but messier. One messier than the other. Although I would argue that the latter is more fun to watch.
Okay, and I will agree with you to the extent that obviously there are many differences.
Except only in real life. Only in real life, when the water splashes on me, I end up saying more slurs than I do on stream. So the analogy doesn't work. I'm just kidding. Listen, chat, the most enraging thing in the world is when the fucking water stream hits the spoon and it just fans out in like this horrendous demonic arc of water that floods the kitchen, just gets you all wet, and you just feel like shit.
There are definitely many ways in which we can otherize fellow citizens, even if we are quote unquote homogenous in terms of race, ethnicity, religion, and so forth. There's no denying that. I do, even though I do think that race and ethnicity and religion are definitely, as we've seen throughout history, are going to be a source of tension. I obviously there are other things, like obviously when it comes to class struggle or just your political beliefs. But I guess, and by the way, I'm not against people traveling to countries, living there. It's one of those things where, okay, professional sports teams, that's an in-group, right? And they're selective. So are beauty pageants. So are pretty much anything in life. I mean, regarding where you work, the friends that you have, your family.
Wait, how do people... This guy's got a sociology degree. He's either lying or there's not as much merit to a college degree than I thought, because this guy seems to be conflating a nation and people's right to exist in a nation, to own land and have a life, and to have rights betrothed to them by, in this case, the Constitution of our nation, and upheld by our government. Like, he seems to be conflating that with a small insular community of people who have the right to determine, what's the term for it? Have the right to determine who they want to hang out with, who they want to be around. This is obviously, like, right to who you want to associate with, obviously does, freedom to association, yes. That obviously applies insofar as, like, who you want to live with in your home, who you want to speak to, who you decide to, work with at work or whatever. This does not apply to who you decide gets to live in your country. Get elected the president or emperor or whatever, if that's how you want it to work. But as far as, like, running a proper country that would, like, maximize freedom and happiness, that is not how you do it. Once again, I want to remind you, libertarian, by the way. I really must emphasize, people who call themselves libertarians, I really do think the burden of proof is on them to prove that they're libertarians. I really do. This day and age on the internet, and trust me, real libertarians have no problem with that. If you run into a real libertarian, they will jump at the opportunity to prove that they are a real libertarian and not a Nazi pretending to be one, because they fucking hate all these fascist alt-righters and Nazis that take up the moniker of libertarian and just to kind of act as a shield against their authoritarian ideology. Because authoritarianism doesn't look pretty. It's not a good look at first. You have to you gotta slip that in well after they're already kind of suckered into everything else, So saying you're a libertarian and you're just conservative, as right-wing as society lets you be without suspecting you of being racism and looking further into the dog whistles, basically. Yeah. Anyway.
And if I think of, like, something like a nation where you have a group of people where their ancestors had built that nation, and that culture, anywhere from hundreds, 1,000 years, doesn't matter. And for their their future offspring to inherit it. I mean, I can't. If those people wish to remain homogenous.
So you're already relying on, like, let's be fair, like, totally immaterial bullshit. Just because a people group built something thousands of years ago does not mean they get to decide the race of people who use it in the future. Additionally, sports teams and beauty pageants are things you elect into. There are prerequisites because they're meant to delineate certain characteristics for various reasons.
So I feel like at, like, a base level, he needs to ask this guy, do you think that there is anything fundamental about race or ethnicity besides just, like, learned experience from people's, like, upbringing that might be different from one place to another? I think like we've skipped a few steps here. This guy is clearly a race realist. I wish Vaush would start asking him, what do you think of what do you think of IQ rates of different nations? What are your thoughts there? I feel like there are some curtains we might start to pull back if we expand our line of questioning to new avenues.
Reasons, beauty or athletic ability. A nation just refers to a geopolitical bloc that has the right to commit violence within a given area. You're just born there. It's not something you choose to go into. Because no choice is made, where you were born there. It is something which I give very little consideration when it comes to, like, the need for in or out group designation. Can we focus on, like, stuff that actually matters, though? Like, this is what the problem that I have is when I have this conversation, it's always like, well, the ancestors built. I don't give a like. Why would I? They're dead. I will be dead one day. I would rather, like, what makes people's lives better, like, what in an empirical sense, like, all I care about is the living and those who are to live in the future. How do we make their lives better? And I've never seen any evidence that, like, restricting the race of people who can enter your country actually does that.
Okay, but I also can't. I mean, is there evidence that...
What's very funny to me, by the way? This right here, when conservatives say, "Oh, the forefathers, they wanted a white nation, they wanted, like," it is super duper reminiscent of, like, the level of whininess and appeal to emotion that, like, the whiny stereotypical SJWs would engage in, like, on the internet back in, like, 2015. Like I'm talking about, like, the people from the videos that would become, that they still use in the thumbnails these days to this day. Those people and their tone and the way they speak, it honestly is very reminiscent of the Nazis, or I should say vice versa, like, almost sort of making this weird, bizarre appeal to emotion about, what our forefathers intended. Like, in that same way, a liberal could say, well, this country was built on slavery, and, like, do some really weird id-pol argument. in the opposite direction, and then the Nazi can go, well, our forefathers wanted this country to be white. Well, the slaves actually built this country. Well, no, our forefathers didn't. It's like, okay, who gives a shit about what people that lived a long time ago wanted for this country? Let's evaluate what would actually be best to maximize freedom and happiness now. They're two sides of the same coin, or at least I should say, not necessarily. It's two sides of the same argument, right? Just appealing to emotion and this very intangible idea that because something was an established precedent in the past, or somebody that has been deified in history believed a thing in the past, that is how it must be now.
That allowing different races actually is going to improve in every situation the material conditions.
I don't have to.
A homogenous country.
The default is towards freedom. People should be able to do what they want unless it's proven that it hurts other people. We take the same attitude towards law. A person doesn't need to prove that something should be legal. The state needs to prove why it should be illegal. That's how we go by ethics as well. So whether or not people of different races entering a country makes it better is immaterial to me. The question is whether or not them entering makes it worse. If there's a perfectly neutral outcome to their entrance, then I would still say you have a net positive because people have been allowed to act freely. That's a positive thing.
Yeah, so, well, I think the way I would have explained that was, all right, hold on. We exist right now in a country that, under the presupposition that we should not have an ethnostate. You are suggesting that we establish an ethnostate. It is not on me to prove that this system works. It is on you to prove that your system would be better. He, the person Vaush is debating, has the onus of proof. Him, saying, okay, prove this system is better than my system is laughable as fuck.
Okay, but wouldn't you be taking away the freedom for a group of individuals? And of course, I'm talking about...
Oh, no. Oh, no, I know where this is going.
Their right to, or I should say their freedom... their freedom of association.
Freedom of association. Oh, no. Oh, no. He's doing it. He's actually doing it. He's saying that racists are having their freedom impeded upon if the people of the race they don't like are allowed to exist in their country. As I said before, the concept of freedom is basically that people can do anything they want as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else or impede on their freedom, right? So I'm allowed to swing my fist, but that freedom to do so stops where your face begins, because that's when I start punching you in the face, and you have the freedom to not just be punched in the face. Very much like you have the freedom to be racist as much as you like, but that freedom to be racist ends at when you are trying to take away the freedom for, say, non-white people to exist in the country they live in and to live their lives as they want to. That's not freedom. That's authoritarianism, the opposite of freedom.
How?
You dishonor your ancestors when you use that cowardly euphemism. You are not restricting others' freedoms by exercising your own. You do not have a freedom to dictate the freedoms
Based.
of others.
Glad Vaush called that out.
If that's the case, you could say that, you're anti-freedom by not wanting children to be kidnapped because you're removing the freedom of the child kidnapped. It's ridiculous. We're talking about the rights people actually have. You already have a right to free association. Because I am not you, I support a world in which you have the right to move literally anywhere you want. You don't get to decide where other people move. I think this is a fair system.
Sure, and by the way, the approach I'm coming at this from is not from
Vaush already winning
nationalist point of view, but this is a freedom of association type of view, which
please,
I do.
Stop doing that. Stop. You're not talking about freedom. You're talking about...
So freedom of association, it's a dog whistle. This guy's just cowardly. A lot of conservatives really are cowardly. One of the things that I think is very interesting is that when conservatives are at their most prominent culturally, they get sloppy. And the mask starts to slip. You'll notice that, for a very long time, during the election season, when the election was leading up, a lot of the most right-wing figures were really hardcore on the dog whistling, don't you guys remember? I really had to dig to get to the sentiment behind a lot of the dog whistles certain figures would use when I first started doing this content. But now that Gamergate 2 has started, I found myself, like, not having to do that anymore. Like, usually it's just straight up, in your face, we are anti-good things, pro-bad things. And all I have to do is feature that, explain why it's stupid, and makes my job quite a bit easier. It also makes it a lot harder for the fans and the spineless defenders of this content and of this ideology to try to fall back on, oh, this is centrist, oh, I'm not a Nazi, oh, I'm not alt-right, oh, I'm not a conservative, I'm a centrist, I'm a liberal, I'm a classical liberal, I'm a paleo-conservative, I'm a libertarian, whatever shield they use to hide whatever they actually are, because they're too cowardly to actually stand behind their true beliefs. Because they know society doesn't accept them, by the way.
Restricting the freedom of others to live where they want.
Paleo-conservative, Nazi. It means Nazi. Anyone who calls themselves a paleo-conservative is a Nazi. It's just another word that means Nazi but isn't Nazi. There's an actual meaning to that. Like, if you look up paleo-conservative, it's an ideology and everything. But everyone who calls themselves that is a Nazi, just calling themselves that to get by. It's kind of like, here's a similar, a good one. If anyone ever says, I just want the trains to run on time, they're a Nazi. It's very, very vague, and it doesn't really sound like, yeah, that's one too. That's a more that one's resurfacing. That's a more common dog whistle these days.
You already have freedom of association. You can live anywhere you want. What you're talking about is justifying taking away freedom of association from other people. You are not defending freedom here. Your position is the anti-free position. You are the authoritarian. I am arguing against your proposed authoritarian policy.
Oh, I absolutely don't believe it's authoritarian. These were not stripping.
No, that Hitler did not, in fact, make the trains run on time. That is true. That is true. He only expanded a system that was already, like, put into place prior to his coming into power. So it was just like the rail line systems that were put into place before the Nazi Party took power. The projects were just continued, and many finished, while the Nazi Party was in power. So it's kind of like when Obama implemented, oh, holy shit, there's 2 Vaushes on stream. Oh my god. Oh, I'm so clever. I'm so funny. It's kind of like when Obama, like, he did some good shit, okay? A lot of the policies that he implemented, just did a lot to make Americans' lives better. The ACA, the Affordable Care Act, very big deal, right? I mentioned this recently. My grandma had her cancer treatment paid for by that. I got a whole extra year of life with my grandma because of the ACA. She would not have been able to afford her cancer treatment, chemotherapy, radiation, any of that without it. And this is just one example of the policies that Obama, like, put into place. A lot of people's lives are better here in America because of that. Obama basically inherited an economy that was fucked over by Bush-era policy. He inherited all of the consequences of that, while the prior, relative ease of things, the relative prosperity, he got the credit for, Bush got the credit for, and Obama ended up being president during the 2008 financial crisis. Am I right? I was 9 years old, so my memory might be a little mixed, right? But Obama got, like, all the fucking blame for the 2008 financial crisis, which was, if I am not mistaken, wasn't that the fault of well, not entirely the fault of trickle-down economics. Obviously, that fucked over the economy pretty hard. But, like, it was more so related to, like, bailing out large corporations and, like, fuck. I need to refresh on what caused the 2008 financial crisis. I was 9 years old, guys. I was 9 years old. Okay, I'm sorry. I should have been watching C-SPAN. Bailing out banks after the housing crisis. Yeah, something along those lines. I know it has something to do with the government bailed out large, wealthy entities that overreached, knowing that the only people that would be harmed if the worst case scenario happened would be the American people. And then the worst case scenario happened, the American people got harmed, and it was because of Republican policy that this happened, in large part, at least from what I've been told. and Obama got the blame. Sucks. I know it had a lot to do with fake Libzan. I know, right? I know. I wasn't campaigning for Obama back in 2008. I should have been there. Back when he was running in the primary, I was 7 years old during the primaries back then. I should have been there during the primaries, 7 years old, with, just... Actually, you know what's really funny? My grandma was more left-wing than my mom. My mom in the primaries voted for Hillary Clinton, and I remember going to the polling station with her. So my grandma voted first, and she voted for Obama in the primaries. And I asked my grandma, why are you voting for Obama? And her explanation was one, it'd be really cool to have the first ever black president in my lifetime. Two, his policies are just better. He is more progressive. He is a better history than Hillary Clinton. And she my grandma had legitimately good explanations for why Obama would have been a better pick than Hillary Clinton for the primaries. Of course, Obama won those primaries. And then later, my mom took me to the polling station for her to vote in the primaries, and she was voting for Hillary. And I asked her, why are you voting for Hillary? And she was just I don't even remember what she said, but I'm gonna be honest, going off of what my mom would say now, it was probably some Yas Queen girl boss shit. Dude, back in 2008, Hillary Clinton was saying shit like video games cause violence in children in the same way that lead exposure causes violence in children. Do you remember that clip? Yeah, she said that. She said video games are just as big of a threat to children causing violence to their minds as lead exposure. This is such a massive stun lock.
The rights away of anybody.
You're stripping away the right for those people to enter and live in the country that you're prescribing these policies for. That is, by definition, a freedom that you are removing from them, unambiguously through state power. And you're talking about other people's freedoms. You already have the freedom.
Okay, but if it's, let's just say, the overwhelming, let's just say 100% of the people that live in this nation don't want somebody else coming into their nation, or there are people that are different from them coming in their nation, you're then violating their freedom because they can't be left alone and they don't have a democratic voice. You're basically saying, no, that's wrong.
If 100% of people in a country believe that it's acceptable to take away the right to life for, say, Jewish people, do you think then keeping them from doing so would be a violation of their freedoms, or are you simply protecting the freedom of the Jewish people?
This person just doesn't understand basic philosophical concepts. Now listen, I want to be very clear here. I think philosophy is for virgins who desperately need to touch a clitoris. I think that there are some pretty basic concepts of morality and of basic philosophy that are just a given, once you gain sentience around 3 or 4 or 5 years old, usually, I feel like you should be able to understand the concept of, wait a second, other people have the right to exist, and I have the right to exist, but I don't have the right, my right to exist does not override other people's right to exist. I feel like some of the most basic lessons you're taught as a child, by the way, in fucking preschool, how to share and whatnot, these are basic moral tenets we teach to our children. I feel like, man, this guy needs to go back to preschool, I guess. Xander Hall, we know that you're in the no pussy trenches with us right now. Listen, you guys don't know what I'm doing off stream, okay? You see that bed? You see how messy that bed is? You don't know who I'm having over.
What does Jews have to do with this?
It's a simple analogy. Just because a democracy wants to take the rights away from a minority group does not mean that you're removing freedom from the majority when you deny them from doing so. A democracy is founded upon majority rule with...
Nah, but for real, I am in the pussyless trenches with you guys. No cap.
...minority protections. And one of those protections involved basic human freedoms. In this case, we're talking about the right to immigrate, the right for people of different races to live where they want. That's a basic human freedom. Even if we live in a democracy where the majority of people want to take that freedom away, I don't give a shit. I assume the majority of the people in Saudi Arabia think that gay people deserve the death penalty. I continue to not give a shit. Democracy isn't the be-all, end-all. If that was the case, how could we condemn Nazi Germany for committing to the Holocaust when they were genuinely anti-Semitic, or Imperial Japan for what they did in China or Manchuria?
So I feel like this person is a victim of a society that has decided that certain fundamental ideas are just a given and no longer feels the need to explain why they are the case.
It's silly. Just because a country wants to do something doesn't mean that thing is good or that you're an authoritarian for keeping them from doing so.
Yes, and so there was a very specific reason why I used the example of a homogenous, at least ethnically, racially, and religiously, where 100% of the people would have said, "Hey, we just want this country for ourselves." Now, that's going to be a lot different from Nazi Germany, for example, or China, where you have minorities that are living within your.
Wait, I know what point I was going to make before. Sorry. I think that we have a really big problem in our society with basic fundamental ideas that everybody ought to agree with kind of being thought of as being like a given at this point, as no longer needing to be justified anymore. And so those that believe in those ideals actually can't justify them. As I said before, if you find the average person on the street and you stop them, they're probably not racist. In fact, they probably think racism is bad. If you ask them, like, do you think racism is bad? They'd be like, yeah. But if you ask them why, and I mean like really ask them why, do you think they could explain it? Really? Like ask them, yeah, why is racism bad? I mean, because it's not good. It's just bad. I mean, racism's wrong, you know? You shouldn't be racist to people, you know? It's like being an asshole and stuff, but why is being an asshole bad? What's wrong with that? I don't know. Like, yeah, like nobody who's like not a media trained debate lord who has put either been actually like, you know, educated in why they ought to believe what they believe, or actually put the thought into actually, you know, understanding these things is going to know these things. You're describing philosophy. I am not. I am describing philosophy. I am describing philosophy. I am describing the grounding of one's axioms. But listen, okay? I'm not a virgin, all right? I know I'm talking about philosophy. I promise you guys, I am not a virgin, though. Grounding your axioms will not give you your virginity back. I promise you. All right? I love insulting. I love, like, subtly insulting people who are interested in philosophy. Sounds like cope. Sounds like you're coping.
Country, right?
There are minorities within every country.
Tyranny of the majority. Yes, but in this hypothetical, there isn't.
Wait, it is not tyranny of the majority to prevent the majority from discriminating against the minority. That is the opposite of the tyranny of the majority. You're defending the tyranny of the majority position by saying
no.
Thank you.
No, because there's no minority in this country. No, because
does this guy mean
it's not just within the country?
I think this guy means tyranny of the minority. I think this guy is very stupidly, by the way. He's failing to make the argument. He's failing to make the wrong and stupid argument that allowing minorities to exist in a country simultaneously with people who do not believe those minorities ought to exist in that country is thus those minorities, which I literally mean both literally and the figurative term, like minority as in they have a minority hold of power and you know, sociological, you know what I mean, as well as literally minorically being a minority. That would be, in his mind, he's trying to make the argument that is tyranny of the minority. This guy is interesting. I really can't think of any other word to describe this guy than interesting. At least words that won't get me canceled or banned off of several streaming platforms.
You don't get to violate the rights of people outside the country either. You know, in the United States, you can't just travel 1 foot over the Mexican border and then shoot a Mexican, then walk back over. When I talk about ethical protections, I'm not just referring to citizens of the country. I'm talking about everyone.
Sure, but in my hypothetical, I also mentioned that granted that there were no humanitarian crises where they had to take in refugees, in other words, people who needed to come in, I'm also leaving that out. So I'm trying to make it so that I'm basically trying to give an example that is unrealistic and it's hypothetical, where there are no refugees or people that are going to be hurt by not being allowed to come into your country. They're just not allowed in.
That is already a hurt because you are denying them a freedom arbitrarily. It doesn't matter whether or not there's a refugee crisis. You are already denying them their freedom to live within your country. For no reason, by the way.
So this guy's trying very desperately to create a hypothetical scenario in which there is no impetus or at least no immediate impetus for anybody to immigrate. This guy seems to believe that immigration only happens in the real world because of like natural disasters and refugee crises and like escaping poverty, and like he believes that that is why immigration is allowed to happen, or does happen in real life, it seems. And in this hypothetical scenario where that would not happen, I guess he's trying to argue that it would be immoral or unnecessary, as he words it, for immigration to happen. People like this that are too cowardly to make the argument immigration is bad will instead make the argument, why should we allow immigration? They will try to put the onus of defending the current system on you when the actual onus to defend, or I guess attack, is on them. They need to make arguments as to how the current system is bad and how their alternative system would be better. Simple as.
There's a reason why you're not actually trying to talk about the harm that would be done if they could live in the country, is because there's no way of demonstrating it. We're locked in entirely in a hypothetical for the sake of hypotheticals, an abstract for the sake of abstraction. What harm would be done if people of different races could enter the country? Well, let's not focus on that, because the answer is none. Let's talk about some sort of hypothetical, frictionless, perfectly spherical country of one.
Do you want to talk about what would happen if
Chat, did you see what I just saw? I just saw a fucking cryptid. Slow down the footage.
Friction, because
Watch
the
it.
answer is none. Let's talk about some sort of hypothetical
You saw it, right? There's some kind of fucking goblin living in Vaush's house. Somebody needs to make a meme out of that. I feel like that'd be a very good meme.
Frictionless, perfectly
Run it
spherical
back.
country of one.
do you want to talk about what would happen if they were allowed to enter the country and what I would think should happen?
I live in the United States already. I already know what happens when people of different ethnic groups enter a country. We don't need to use abstractions. We can go off real world data.
No, off of my
Yeah,
clip,
we can
Summer
do
Star,
that
not off of
when
the
it comes to
original.
people that move in that are I can't say
No, you make a meme about me. The meme has to be about me, goddammit. These are Xander Hall community memes, I tell you.
racially different, because we're not a racially homogenous country, but I would think that whoever you are, if you're allowed into the country, okay, you are afforded the same rights and the same protections as anybody else, native born or not. And I 100% against any kind of abuse of these people or discrimination against these people.
You support discriminating against their right to live in the country.
No,
This is a pretty rookie argument. Oh, I just believe that, I wouldn't believe in any violence or anything like that. The only way to enforce a racially and ethnically homogenized country, where everybody is the same skin color, everybody is the same ethnicity, everybody is the same nationality, there's no immigration, no one comes in, and very few leave. The only way to enforce something like that, necessarily, and there is no other way to do so, is with the threat of violence. States only exist because they can do violence. The only reason why, alright, and let's be real, the only reason why most of us feel fairly safe walking outside knowing that we're probably not just going to get shot or stabbed or killed right on the spot, depending on where you live, at least here in America, is because, we have police, which have the authority to enact violence against people that don't follow the law. And while we don't agree with every law, I think most people agree with most laws. The state's right to enact violence on us, the people, is necessary for the state to exist. So there is no way whatsoever that a state would be able to basically have like an ethnic cleansing of sorts without any violence occurring. People are going to say, no, I don't want to leave, or I want to get in. No matter how tall of a wall you build or how deep of a moat you dig, no matter how non-violent you try to make the impossibility of entering your ethnostate to be, people are still going to try to get in, and if you're going to remove them, it's going to require enacting violence. I feel like this is pretty basic. We really are going back to 2017, 2016 with these white nationalist arguments. Back to easy mode. My job's about to be easy mode as fuck. You guys don't even know. Conservatives were so fucking dumb back during Gamergate. Their arguments were so lazy and so low effort. It was so easy to fucking whip them. You guys have no idea. They got, believe it or not, they got stronger. Not like they're still wrong and stupid, but they got stronger over the years, you know? And they're getting lazier, weaker, and putting in less effort now. They're getting easier to dunk on, you know? Less dog whistles, a little bit more mask off, and getting more shameless, you know? A lot more shameless. Easier to just, like, point and laugh without having to do as much work, you know?
That was the hypothetical. I don't... When it comes to an ethno-state like the United States, I don't... That's kind of retarded. I wouldn't advocate for that.
But there's no reason for it anywhere.
I mean, I don't know.
I saw it again.
Isn't it odd to have such a strong conviction towards an idea for which you have so little supporting evidence? Why care at all if this is the degree to which you care? This, well, maybe perhaps, like, you sound like an engineering student deliberating over different type of valve inputs to use in a water purification plant, you know? Well, this one has 0.02% more efficiency when talking about water above this temperature. Like, we're talking about ethnostates here. Surely you have some deep conviction that you understand would be retarded if you spoke it aloud. In your head, there's plenty of racist bullshit bubbling. You just know it'd be bad to air it. But that's what actually motivates your belief here, right?
Sure. Oh, yeah. There's definitely racist beliefs that I have.
Well, then why? Well, I know, like, obviously it's not a good idea to share those with me, but like, that's just because they're dumb. You could just stop believing those and be smart. You could evolve, you know, and not think those things if you wanted to, and that would sort of improve the whole, you know.
Well, okay, but the reason I was using the hypothetical regarding, you know, freedom of association is because I'm without any preconceived biases that I have. Okay, I'm trying to see just how much you would judge a country that is willing to exclude other people. You know, when I can limit every other variable where they're not hurting people. But of course, you said that, well, by not letting them in, they're hurting them. Right,
yes, I have anarchist political tendencies. You know, we're talking about the right for a state to deny people the right to live on a place on our beautiful limited Earth.
Does this guy understand the difference between someone's private property, like their land, like the lot that they built their house on, their yard and their land, and an entire fucking country? Actually, no. I feel that, like, this guy, you know what this guy wants? I know what this man wants. This man, he is a libertarian for one reason, okay? He wants his property to be a sovereign nation free from the laws of America. Well, I think you can understand why a libertarian would want his property to be free from some particular American laws, if you know what I'm saying.
Because of their skin tone or ethnic background. I'm ideologically opposed to you on every level before you even include the consequences of the actions. My opposition to this is axiomatic.
Okay.
Hog.
And so I'm willing to bet. Like I said, I haven't really listened to you before. I know you're a big deal on the internet. So
did you just say I'm going to bed? You know what you've done? You've made me tired.
Oh, not
all right. So I'm willing to bet, because it's my understanding that for years you've been doing debates. You're probably a lot more rhetorically gifted and better at debating than me. I'm not even a good debater. But yeah, I'm guessing you talk to a lot of, like, alt-right and far-right people, correct?
He goes on for another hour, by the way. Oh, does he try to save it? Oof. It would have been smart. He would have been smart just to end it here. He would have been real smart just to end it here. What is this segment called? He admits he's racist. This is not an argument in favor of racism. Okay, I like this. He admits he's racist. Let's at least watch to this point.
I've had this conversation plenty of times, but I'm always interested in having it again. Yes, I'm probably more rhetorically skilled than you, but I try not to let that give me the opportunity to bowl over people. I'll address your arguments directly. The problem is, I just don't think it's possible for you to have any good ones. There are a couple of directions you can take this. You can talk about the actual direct effect of ethnic integration, at which point I can point out that when we talk about these studies pertaining to ethnic integration, we're usually not actually talking about ethnic differences. We're talking about specific ethnic differences. Or to put it another way, if you go into New York City, there are plenty of ethnicities, but only some distinct ethnic conflicts, usually racial ones. And those racial conflicts are usually alleviated over time. The more time different racial and ethnic groups spend together, the more likely it is they eventually get along. To the point where it's more likely that people will be in favor of integration if they actually live around the people who they're referring to when we think of integration. So given enough time, diversity and integration literally makes people more progressive, which is kind of like a political shorthand for the idea that people want to be around people who are different from them. And who wouldn't? It makes life more interesting. You can talk about the specific rates of criminality or different levels of social.
That is true. People who live in areas that have higher densities of like people of different races and different origins living together tend to be more progressive, which would suggest if they are living in quote unquote the results of immigration and they are in favor of it, then maybe it's a good thing. You know, cities, you know, the places where immigrants tend to live, ideally, because there are better economic opportunities in cities, which are also notoriously left-wing, insofar as their voter base, even among, like, white native-born American citizens that live there. So you would think these white native-born American citizens living in these cities, packed with minorities, packed with these dangerous and horrible immigrants or whatever, you'd think they'd be voting really red, right? Like, if they're constantly being exposed to how horrible the existence of immigrants and minorities in their country is, don't you think they'd vote red? Isn't it strange that the people voting red, the people voting to have there be less non-white people in this country, live in places where not only are there basically no non-white people, but where they basically never even got an opportunity to meet someone who wasn't white? I wonder what that should tell you. I wonder what that ought to tell you.
Biological attainment for different ethnic and racial groups, but those have more to do with class structures than anything else, which is why you can pretty easily point to the disparaging sort of the different trajectories that different ethnic groups have taken in America since they eventually, originally came here. You have the Irish and the Italians, for example, who were originally considered to be like pale-skinned black people in terms of social attainment, to the point where they were pushed into the same ghettos. But then eventually, after, let's say, a collection of difficult and disparaging social circumstances, they were allowed to ascend into kind of broader white hegemony, whereas black people weren't. And redlining kind of sealed the deal on which neighborhoods black people were locked into, where white and Italian people got to participate in white flight. And then with the death of American manufacturing, you have these essential ghetto towns like Detroit and Chicago and the Rust Belt and what have you.
He's going off.
Which guarantees that the only real income there is going to be through crime and drug distribution. So most of the stuff that people use to justify their racism can be easily explained away with a basic understanding of socioeconomics. But you have a degree in sociology, to which point I have to ask you, what are you doing? What could motivate these beliefs of yours other than a sort of a willing rejection of the things that you took an education on? What are you doing with that degree of yours?
Well, I would say
he might as well be wiping his ass with that degree, because frankly, it means nothing, apparently. I mean, goddamn. I feel like at this point, I could probably go into a college sociology course and just... I feel like I could replace the professor at this point. No, probably not. But, like, legitimately, this is sad. Sadly, as interesting as sociology is, it's insanely useless. I don't think that's true. Sociology is useless insofar as the workforce. Yeah, it is. You're not going to get yourself pretty much any good job with a sociology degree. But let me tell you guys, you know what a sociology good degree tends to be good for? Not necessarily the degree. The degree isn't worth anything, but the knowledge that you might get and the connections you might make and the friends that you might make, etc., 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 through taking a sociology course are all very beneficial to what I do. Talking about politics, any type of political commentary, getting involved with politics in general, you better believe having a sociology degree or just any history and knowledge about sociology is going to be helpful. At least it'll be, a skill that you'll use.
Well, I worked, I don't want to dox myself, but I worked in social work a while, and we'll get into it. But I do, and a lot of the right-wing people here are going to probably cringe when they hear this, but when it comes to intersectionality, do I do believe that that is something that is real. For example, I'm not, I wouldn't say that I'm blindly racist, but when I was a college student, I did fight
Oh no.
pretty much, probably at least half the time.
Oh no, are we gonna hear about him? Oh. Are we gonna hear him tell a story about a time when he was in college and he liked some girl, and he liked some blonde white girl, and he fantasized about asking her out like 4 or 5 times, but then the popular like preppy kid who has like a really bright future and really good grades and like already has a bunch of scholarships and like business opportunities came and took her away because he actually had enough bravery to ask her out, only he was black and now he's racist. How much you want to bet that's what he's about to say? He's about to tell the story about the time that he got cucked by fuck, what do the incels say? What's the black Chad for the incels? What's the name for the incel meme for black Chads? Tyrone. It's Tyrone. Yeah. He's gonna be like, I got cooked by Tyrone and now I'm an incel. Is that what he's gonna say? That'd be very funny. Very good impression of his voice, by the way.
Through my classes because I thought a lot of it was bullshit. But yeah, but going back to the Italian and Irish thing.
You're joking, but I'm pretty sure this guy talked in Discord about his Jewish wife of 10 years leaving him. Wait, are you joking? Bisudu, you're not joking? No shot. You know what's going to happen now, too? This guy's just a piece of shit and does not have a pleasant personality, and now he's going to decide, because he needs an out. He can't accept that he's just kind of a piece of shit, like, and he just has a bad personality. So his out is going to be that, it's women's fault. It's the Chad's fault. It's the Tyrone's fault. Yada yada. These types of people can't accept that they are to blame for many of their own problems, so they have to find a scapegoat for them. And racism has always been the easiest path to finding a scapegoat for your problems for angry, disaffected white people for like hundreds of years. Who thought the internet was going to change that?
I get it. So you had a bunch of people that would come here. And of course, they were allowed to come here because they were of European descent. And, the first Immigration Act passed during the first Congress in, I believe it was like 1795. It specifically stated that like free white men of good moral character or whatever from Europe could come here. And so they were allowed to come here. And, an Irish and an Italian or an Irish and an Englishman, they could marry. Miscegenation laws, I believe there were a couple states that had those kinds of laws, but for the most part, they could marry. But they were considered white. Now, they were considered
Is this guy trying to argue that Irish immigrants were considered white? Wait, back in the... No. Dude, Irish people were derogatorily referred to as, like, inside-out Negroes. Back during the time when being black in America was very, 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 very tough. And they were treated as such by racist white people. N-word sayer. Click. Not only that, but they were forced to live in ghettos and tenement housing. They had, like... There was this fucking famous photographer. Oh, it's so disgusting that this guy went down in history with a somewhat positive reputation. He was a eugenicist, and the photos he was taking of, like, Irish and Italian immigrants in the slums of New York City were literally being used as propaganda to promote eugenics. What was his name? Something Reese or something like that? Really famous photographer. I had to learn about him in my photography class in high school. Someone in chat knows who I'm talking about, right? Like, there were signs up outside of, like, bathrooms, stores, restaurants, anything like that, hotels, what have you, that would say, whites only, Irish need not apply. Now, if Old English is hard for you, if that's even Old English, that means, like, whites only. Remember, Irish people aren't white, though. You know, don't you Irish forget you're not white. That's basically what the sign said. Jane Reese. Wait, no, I think it was like a man that did it. No, yeah, I've got the name wrong. I'm sorry. Well, if anybody with a decent, if anybody who's taken a fucking photography course probably knows who I'm talking about.
Low tier shit class white group, you know, for lack of a better term. But yeah, and they lived in ghettos. They had problems. I think you and I will both agree that not only being poor, but urban poor, especially in highly populated areas, that's generally associated with a lot of crime.
Did he just say urban in reference to black people? Is that what he just said? I think that's what he just did. God, I haven't heard that in a long time. That's like old school racism.
And you know, the Irish and the Italians were examples of that. And they lived in their ghettos. But I wouldn't. I think it's kind of a weak argument to try to compare a group that is phenotypically and culturally far more similar to the founding stock, you know, to people from other parts of the world. I think it would be harder for them to assimilate, mainly because of those phenotypical differences. If you're black and you have a child with a white woman or a white man, I mean, chances are it's not going to exactly look white.
Of what relevance is this when we talk about the fundamental ethics concerning integration?
I want somebody. I want to put this guy in the same. I want this guy to be forced to look at a bunch of memes made by black separatists, where it's like those memes where it's like, this black woman married a white man, and now their child is mixed. The blackness is being destroyed from her bloodline. Her grandparents must be so disappointed. Like, I want him to be forced to look at a bunch of memes like that. And then I want one of them to be forced to watch, like, this clip and see this racist complain about it. And for them both to realize, oh shit, we're very stupid. We're very, very stupid. I want to see their reactions to basically the opposite ideologies arguing the same thing but the opposite thing is happening. I don't know. I feel like it'd be funny.
And immigration. Yes, it's true. Black people tend to look more black than white people. I've noticed that when looking at them. Of what relevance is this?
Oh, well, the relevance is that people, for whatever reason, okay, they're trying.
Oh my god, someone in the chat just said Keffels is coming for you. That is scary. Oh god.
And
oh,
they
no.
will otherize each other based on phenotypical differences. And I don't know. We've been in the United States. Black people have been in the United States for over 400 years. Native Americans, obviously, longer than that. I wouldn't say race relations have ever been great between all of us. And yet, at the same time, I think it's a good idea to invite a flood of third worlders into our countries with the hope that these third worlders can keep afloat a first world nation, as if that's ever been done before.
Let's calm down, because
he just went from like -2 to 11 instantly. Like, we went from, yeah, like before like we had, you know, obviously like Native Americans living in America before you know, white colonialists came here to America, but now we think all of a sudden that having third worlders here in our first world country is good. It's like, whoa, where was the escalation? Whoa, hey Heavy Gretel, yay, chat's favorite goth MILF is back, yay.
Well, let's calm down for a moment, because you've made a couple of claims. First of all, it's true we've never had great racial relations here in the United States, though right now they're certainly better than they have been in the past. But the fact that people like you have been racist is not an argument in favor of the racism. I hope you know that. Your answer right there was essentially just, well, what are you going to do, right? Well,
you know what this reminds me of? When people like this say, well, people that lived before me that I've deified, and basically history has completely whitewashed entirely, they, if you twist these words, agreed with me, which means I am correct. Which reminds me a lot of, like, when I get hate comments on my videos, when I like react or respond to like a conservative channel, and their fans respond with, very nice arguments you had there, lefty. But did you notice that his sub count is higher than yours? If you were so correct about these arguments, if your arguments were so correct, wouldn't you have more subscribers? Left wing destroyed. That truly is a significant amount of the hate comments I get from like conservative fans of conservative YouTubers that I respond to that are larger than me. That's how they think. They genuinely just want to be part of the popular team. They have the supreme FOMO and need to be on the winning popular team.
I think we can do some stuff, we can culturally push back against racism. We got rid of slavery and the Jim Crow laws. Clearly that history is capable of pushing us in some direction.
Yep.
Also, again...
Jacob Reese, thank you. Yep, that was him. Jacob Reese, you guys found him. Thank you, Witch Night Melody. You did it. You did it. Based. That was him. Jacob Reese. Good shit. If you want to drop a lore tidbit about that man in the chat so we can get a little bit more lore, then yeah.
And integration tends to make people more progressive. Big cities tend to be much more socially progressive, and those are the areas where white and black people are most likely to interact with each other. Repeatedly studies show this. It's not actually like being around people who are different from you that makes you racist. It's the opposite. Being away from them and hearing retarded stories or 4chan green text posts, that's what tends to make people racist. You have these white boys in the suburbs who are 16 years old who will not touch a woman for 30 years to come, who are reading stories about how black people are all hoodlum thugs or whatever, and they clutch their heart.
They're 16 years old. They won't touch a vagina for many years. Okay, so I think that's a little bit rough because, to be fair, they are 16 years old. The ones of them that are lost causes will not touch a vagina for 30 plus years to come. The ones of them that can be saved will touch a vagina in the next 10 years and will grow out of this shit and realize, oh wow, I really just had so much rage contained in my nutsack that needed to get busted out on a girl's stomach, and now that it's happened, I no longer hate women. That's how it works.
And gasp at the thought of Western civilization falling apart as they fail to personally contribute to white birth rates or do anything with their lives. No, in reality, it is...
Bro, just jerk off. That's how you fix it, yeah.
Absence from integration, which tends to make people more opposed to integration, which is another one of the reasons why I oppose ethnostates, by the way.
No, that is how it works, though. Like, unironically, like, once I lost my virginity and I realized, wait, okay. Oh, I did it. Okay. And I was like, that was pretty good. It's not like this ethereal, like, must-reach, like, unreachable thing now. And it's like, okay, well, now women are people again, And now you start, and that's what happens. You stop constantly thinking about losing your virginity, and this is a problem that a lot of young men who haven't lost their virginity have. They just, it's like prime objective, number one mission, like objective. Number one objective is lose virginity. Side objectives: eat, sleep, drink water, stay alive. That is literally the average young man who is still a virgin's priority list. And once that has been met, I'm not saying that there's that they're owed it or anything like that. I think psychologically, for a lot of dudes, once they lose their virginity, they realize, oh wait, it was stupid of me to base my self-worth on having had sex before. And then they start treating women like people. They stop seeing women as potential sex objects. And once you start treating women like people, you'd be surprised. It tends to work out pretty well. It really, really does. You'd be really, really surprised. They like being treated like people. Usually. Some of them do like being treated like objects within certain contexts. But most of them like to be treated like people. I know, it's not very intuitive, but,
Racism is cumulative, it tends to compound upon itself. And at the end there, you said something or another about third worlders. I don't really know what you're going on about when you say third worlders. You're describing a pretty wide swath of the world. Do you mean the Nigerian doctor?
Oh, and it's a lose-lose, by the way, right? Because for guys, you're, having your virginity as a guy is legitimately, a mark of shame. and you are not seen as a real man until you've lost your virginity. But if you're a woman, once you've lost your virginity, society in many ways will like view you as tainted or unclean or used goods. So these are two simultaneously existing things that are just like, it's a rigged game. Men are getting fucked over because, like, let's be honest, like, a lot of dudes are like going from like 15, 16, 17, like mid to late high school. They feel like every other guy their age is losing their virginity and is having sex, and they're not, and they're the only one. They feel alone in this, and they start to feel like they're owed it. And you never want a hormonal, horny teenage white boy in high school to feel like he's owed something that's being denied him. That is, that's a recipe for a news headline.
Or the Indian tech experts, the Cuban doctors, or do you mean the Hispanics who prop up our entire agricultural industry? Which specific group of third worlders do you take issue with? Because our economy has never been this large.
Chat, it is fine to lose your virginity out of high school. I was like a month and a half out of high school when I lost my virginity. I was 18 years old, okay? Don't worry, all right? Don't rush it, okay? I promise you, it is not that life-changing, okay?
It has never produced this much wealth in, well, I was about to say all of American history, but all of world history, huh? We're quite powerful. There are problems with our economy, but I think that has more to do with capitalism than it does the actual, preponderance of these industries. So what's the issue here? Why? What's wrong?
For sure. So I'll go on to say, first of all, I grew up and I still live in the Southwest. Like, I wouldn't say there was much in the way of diversity. I would say it's just like Mexican and white. But with that being said, I don't have a problem with people on a personal level whatsoever, or even diversity. I mean, I think even you would agree, diversity is kind of cool. You can go to different parts of town. You can go to.
Oh my god, this guy just can't defend anything. I can't listen to this guy's voice anymore. He actually can't make an argument. So I think I know exactly how to finish this off. Here's my thesis. A lot of people online who have found camaraderie and meaning in these far-right conservative spaces like this guy has don't actually have the arguments to back anything up. Every one of them that I've talked to, debated, or seen debate or speak or whatever, they always either range from like being completely clueless and just having like, a bunch of memes, like a bunch of racist memes or whatever that they like to repeat, and they'll just troll and meme their way through an entire discussion or whatever. And then you get like the ones that are actually trying, and they'll like remember statistics, and they'll recite and remember talking points and dialogue tree lines and everything like that, but they don't actually understand the topics. They don't actually have a nuanced understanding of it, because once you actually try to get them to explain what they mean, not word for word whatever they read out of a book, they crumble because they don't actually know what it meant. They're just reciting something that someone else said to sound smart. You guys have seen this happen before. You guys have seen it. Remember when I debated that one fascist who wanted to debate me on what fascism was? He was like, Trump is not a fascist. The Nazis were not fascist, and the right is not fascist either. And he brought up like this very bizarre, unheard of explanation of what fascism was. And you could tell that he was reciting it word for word because he just kept on saying it over and 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 over again. And he just kept reciting it, and he could rarely like change up the way it was phrased. And he just kept on mentioning this one book, and I very quickly realized this guy's just repeating a dialogue tree. So I asked him to explain what that meant, and he couldn't. And that's what ended the conversation and made him leave, was he could not actually explain what the dialogue trees that he'd memorized actually meant. He could not rephrase them without like the old, without like in a more nuanced way. And it's very common. It's very, very common. Yeah, it's kind of like when DJ Mule, actually, that reminds me. It's kind of like when DJ Mule showed that apparently fake Lenin quote in his video. So there was a point apparently in DJ Mule's video where he said, debating doesn't change anybody's mind, and we know that because of fake Lenin quote. SDL said it was a fake Lenin quote, and I mean, listen, SDL is the theory boy, so I trust SDL when SDL says theory thing is true or untrue. He actually did? Really? Being a good or a bad person is not a political boundary thing. I know this is going to sound like very unintuitive to you guys, but like there are a lot of good people on the right at the moment. I don't think you guys realize, but if my channel ends up blowing up to like 500k subs at some point in the future, it's no doubt going to happen because many of those subscribers are going to be people who are right now watching The Quartering, who are right now watching Nick Fuentes or Sneeko or Andrew Tate. They're young, impressionable, and rebellious, and they're good people. They were morally lucky in many cases and did not have the understanding to defend the correct opinions they had instilled in them when they were young, if they were, or they were raised in bad situations, or they were just radicalized on the internet. Many of them are going to grow out of it, and many of them are going to end up being fans of mine. And I don't think the fact that they were conservative once makes them bad people. A lot of the chuds, a lot of the Andrew Tate fans, a lot of the people that we are currently like dealing with right now in the next few years are going to be fans of me and fans of Vaush and fans of ContraPoints and fans of the online left. Do you want to know how I know that's true? Because 2.5 years ago, roughly, I did a video calling out JonTron for his for still being on the far right, for still likely being alt-right. Or a Nazi, because he was pushing like election stolen conspiracy shit for the 2020 election. And his fans just absolutely mobbed on the video to hate it. Though recently, now it's an older video, no one's really watching that video anymore, no one's really hate commenting on it, because it's kind of faded into the algorithm. So now, I get notified very frequently when any comment gets posted on that video. And I've gotten quite a few comments in the last few months that are like, I watched this video 2 years ago, back when I was conservative or back when I was right-wing. I left a dislike on it. I'm here to leave a like on it now. I'm sorry, or I'm taking back my dislike. I've gotten several comments like that, not just on the JonTron video, but several others, from people who came to my channel at one point to leave a dislike and a hate comment, who came back years later even to say, I'm taking back my dislike, and possibly became fans. I think it's worth remembering that. A lot of these people are brainwashed, but the people who are brainwashing them, many of them, are fucking evil. Anyway, with all that said, if you enjoyed what you saw, if you enjoyed this video, this segment, whether you're watching live or after the fact, please consider leaving a like. It really helps me out a lot. It's not a hollow show of support. YouTube has severely buffed the like button. The like button is really powerful. Just hitting that like button means a lot more views, a lot more money, a lot more subscribers, a lot more algorithm power, all the good things for a YouTube channel is what comes from likes. If you want to see more from me, you can also subscribe and ring the bell icon to turn on all notifications so that YouTube actually tells you when I go live or I upload a new video, because trust me, they won't do it if you don't. If you want to see more from me, by the way, on the internet generally, you can look at my social medias, which are all linked down below in the description, including my Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, fan Discord, and don't forget my subreddit. Please go to my subreddit, join my subreddit. I'm really trying to get my community to start to I'm trying to get the wheel going on my community now, okay? And I feel like the subreddit is a good place for memes and like fan art and stuff to be gathered up. So if you've got fan art, if you've got memes, anything like that, post it on the Xander Hall subreddit. That is where it is best found. If you've got discussions, questions, things like that, the Xander Hall subreddit, I really want to start shilling it now, so please go join it. It should be linked down below. And of course, if you want to go the extra mile and you really love my content and you want to support me financially to keep this content going, as of course I am currently saving up money to move to Seattle so I can start, well, living my life, I guess you could say, as well as expanding my content into new avenues that I can't at the moment, and I couldn't before, that I will be able to once I'm in Seattle and up in Washington State. There's a lot of really exciting stuff. So if you want to support me financially, you can donate, subscribe, or gift a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live. In fact, if you're watching on YouTube or Twitch right now and you've noticed that I'm not really reading the chat much, or I haven't responded to you, or that the on-screen chat is different, it is because I have a website, xanderhall.com/live. That is the chat on screen, is the chat that I read, and it's the chat that like 80% of my viewers are actually talking in. So if you want to join the true, real chat, the real like hub of my community, to have your messages immortalized on screen forever, and for me to actually read your messages, please come to my website. It is not hard to find the link, and it's totally free to make an account and talk in the chat. You might even have somebody gift you a sub and have your white name shedded away for completely free. You can also support me through a YouTube super chat or super sticker, a Prime sub, or just a normal Twitch sub, or I guess a bit donation, I guess they call it. Or you can support me through Patreon as well as Streamlabs. With all that said, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and have a good one.